I chose the friendship with my ex over my current boyfriend. I regret it now that I found out what my ex was hiding. So Kyle and I have been friends for a bit over 5 years now. During this time, we dated twice but never over 3 months. We split amicable both times and figured that we just work better as friends after all. The second time we dated, we both realized we weren't the ones for each other, so it was pretty easy to end it there and stay as friends. We weren't romantically involved after that, but we did kiss in a game of truth or dare after we broke up. It basically confirmed to me that we were just friends because I felt nothing. Kyle and I have so much in common and we know each other so well that it's a running joke in our friend group that I'd be able to read his mind. Of course, this is not true, but we can talk to each other openly and are just really comfortable around one another. We helped each other through dark times and I can always count on him. Kyle is one of my closest friends and just happens to be my ex. We joke about our failed relationships like what were we thinking, right? And things like been there, done that, and so on. It's really just a joke to us by now, and we will never try having a relationship ever again. Now, in late October I met this guy, Max. We met at a party and hit it off right away. We had a deep conversation and ended the night with a cheeky little bedtime story. By the end of November we started seeing each other regularly. We haven't had the defining the relationship talk yet, but we agreed that we enjoyed getting to know each other and liked how things were for now. Fast forward a bit, one of my close friends and her boyfriend was throwing a New Year's Eve party. They invited all our friends and allowed dates to come along too. I thought this would be a great opportunity for Max to meet all my friends officially. I already knew that Kyle would be there, so I mentioned it to Max. Max told me that he wasn't bothered and that it shouldn't bother him anyway since we weren't even official yet. I made sure to reassure him that he could always tell me if this actually bothered him, and he wouldn't have to play cool just because we aren't official yet. The night of the party comes and I introduce Max as a guy I've been dating for a month now to my friends. We drink, we mingle, I catch up with them, Max gets to know some of them and seems to enjoy it. Midnight comes, we start the countdown and I kiss Max as the new year starts. After that I make my rounds to hug all my friends, wish them all the best, kisses on the cheek, the usual. We celebrate some more and nobody gets home before 5 in the morning. Max calls the next day and tells me he had a good time and I should thank my friend for the invitation on his behalf. I do exactly that and my friend tells me how lovely Max was and jokes that I should better make it official soon or else someone else will steal him. It seemed that both my friends and my potential boyfriend nailed their first impressions. All was well until I met up with Kyle for coffee on Sunday. Naturally, the party came up and I asked him what he thought of Max. Kyle was hesitant at first but then told me that Max had been a little frosty towards him. I decided to give Max the benefit of the doubt. There were nearly 30 people at the party and maybe he didn't get the chance to be in an in-depth conversation with Kyle, so I didn't talk to Max about this and told Kyle that he might just be imagining things. Kyle agrees and we don't mention Max again for the rest of the afternoon. This brings us to yesterday evening. I was over at Max's place. We just finished dinner and were thinking of watching a movie before hitting the sheets. The conversation drifted off and Max asked me about my weekend plans. I told him that some friends and I would meet for drinks on Saturday to celebrate a birthday. Then he asked me if Kyle would be there. Not really knowing where he was going with this, I answered that, yes, he would also be there. And that's where the crap hit the fan. In a passive-aggressive tone he said how ridiculous it was how much time we spent together and that I should be with him if I loved him so much. He also mentioned how I always spend more time with Kyle than him, and how I hugged Kyle for far too long on New Year's. I was so dumbstruck. Days before he told me he was cool with it, he even insisted that he was not at all bothered and now this. I told him that I've hung out with Kyle only 3 times since we started dating, once for a Christmas celebration with some other people, once at the party on New Year's, and the only one-on-one time was the coffee we had on Sunday. I also hugged all my friends at the party and didn't really count seconds to measure who got the longest hug. I tried to tell him repeatedly that I have no feelings for Kyle. I tried to reason with him but he was really defensive all of a sudden and tried to argue that even if I didn't have feelings for Kyle, he would most definitely still have the hots for me. That's where I got angry and told him that if he trusts me so little we might as well end it then and there. He didn't want things to end, me neither to be honest, and told me that he could really see a future with me if it wasn't for Kyle. I explained that Kyle is my friend and I won't ditch a friend for a guy who is this insecure only a month into dating. I didn't spend the night and went home instead. I still really like Max but leaving friends behind is a huge deal breaker for me. He texted me this morning and asked me if I wanted to talk things over. I haven't responded yet and I honestly don't know what to do now. My head is a mess. I don't want things to end with Max. It's been so good up until now, but I can't lose Kyle either. What would you do if you were me? Update. The last couple of days have been one hell of a ride. I texted Max back and agreed to talk about things that night under the condition that we both will be civil and adults about it. Max started the conversation by immediately apologizing for how aggressive he reacted and how stupid he felt for not being able to keep it together. He said it wasn't fair of him to mistrust me and that his jealousy was ridiculously overblown considering we weren't even official. I apologized for not being sensitive enough and realized he wouldn't exactly be thrilled with the situation. I could have made more of an effort to reassure him and adapt situations so that we could both be happy. We both made it clear that it would make us sad if things ended before they had even begun, and we'd probably end up regretting not giving this another shot. Now all that seemed to stand in the way of a happy ending was an awkward conversation about my friendship with Kyle. But before I could even get into it, Max dropped this bomb. So at the party he overheard Kyle and his best friend talking. Kyle said how awful it was to see me with another guy and how unfair it was that we weren't an item. Max did not know what to do with that. He said that that's where what little jealousy and insecurity he had went from 0 to 100, and he couldn't help seeing red. He weighed his options and thought that if he tell me it'd end in a situation where it's his word against Kyle's, and I believe Kyle more. He also didn't want to be that guy that ruined a friendship. So he swallowed his feelings until they burst out when I casually mentioned hanging out with Kyle. As he told me that, I put my guard up and took it with more than just a grain of salt. That story sounded almost cartoonishly convenient. I thought he could try to manipulate me and I had to look out for myself. I told him in all honesty that I'd have to talk to some other people as it was hard to take his word for it given the current situation. Max was very understanding and told me that whatever solution I come to, he'd have to accept it because he lost his right to be involved since he had a tantrum. The night ended with me telling him that I really wanted to trust him to salvage our relationship, but it was just so hard and I was so confused. He again said that he understands and that I should take my time to sort things out. Then he gave me a long hug. Yes, this one was actually long, and I left to figure things out. Oh boy, did I figure things out. The first thing that came into my head was the party where I was dared to kiss Kyle. Guess who thought of the dare? It was Kyle's best friend. Then I thought about how weird Kyle acted when I asked him about Max. At the time I was convinced that he just didn't want to hurt my feelings, but what if he just saw his chance of getting Max out of the picture? I overanalyzed basically every interaction I had with Kyle for the past months. I had ripped the band-aid off and talked to Kyle directly. It was very awkward, but I had carefully planned what I was going to say. I told Kyle that I value our friendship but had gotten a suspicion that he might want more out of our relationship. Kyle is a bad liar, so he got defensive instead and asked me if Max wanted to separate us. I told him that it didn't matter if Max was involved, I just wanted a clear answer on whether us being friends was enough for him or not. He changed the subject and ended up saying some mean things about Max not being a good person. I stayed focused, as I wanted an answer. Given his avoidance of my question was the answer I needed, but I wanted him to spell it out. After some more back and forth, he finally snapped, "Fine." I thought that we'd eventually get back together and it was only a matter of time until you realized that we were meant to be. You should be with me, then we wouldn't have to deal with this. His words still echo in my head. I could have handled him having a little crush on me or if he felt that some things were left unresolved, but this? It felt like my entire world was shattered. All these years of friendship he just stuck around to one day get back together with me? Everything we've been through and everything he did for me was just so that I'd eventually realize that we should date again? I told him that I couldn't return his feelings, not ever. We had tried twice, it didn't work out. At least for me it didn't, and I saw nothing that could change that. I wanted us to be friends, but I don't think it is possible under these conditions. He got pretty worked up about it, and it was like watching someone go through all stages of grief except acceptance. We can still work this out. This is unfair. Nobody will ever love me. I'll change and we can try again in a few months. It took a lot out of me, but I remained calm and told him that it'd be better if we stopped seeing each other for quite some time, and asked him to leave. I was exhausted, betrayed, and honestly creeped out. I really didn't see this ulterior motive. I called my best friend, and when she heard me sob through the speaker she got in her car and came over. I told her what had happened and she was horrified. She had no idea. As word spread in these last 2 days, it turned out that my friends didn't know about his feelings either, and most of them were shocked and repelled by how he acted. I got some amazing support from my friends and Max, and I talked yesterday so I could apologize for putting him in such a horrible situation. I hadn't wanted for us to start out with this level of drama. He believes that I wasn't to blame, but I still think I should have realized some things earlier. 5 years of friendship, for Christ's sake. Max was very sweet. He ordered food from my favorite takeout place, we watched a movie, and cuddled up on the sofa. He said that he was glad that we came out okay and somehow everything was worth the struggle in the end. He also asked if I wanted to be his girlfriend, and I said yes. I'm going to be just fine with Max.